How often is a sequel arguably better than the first? Not often. This may be one of those times. I'm Micah, a licensed therapist, and here we like to talk about horror. Creep 2 continues the story of Josef, a serial killer, who has assumed the identity of Aaron, his favorite victim. This is why I kept mixing up the names in my Creep 1 video. Told you it would make sense eventually. I wanted to cover this one too because it's good and we learn more about Josef and his history. But I guess we don't really know because Josef lies a lot. The sequel is less unsettling than the first one in my opinion, and a little goofier, but in a good way. This time, we start with Dave opening a box, where he is interrupted by Aaron/Josef. Aaron/Josef, I'm gonna have to switch. I'm gonna have to just call him Aaron, but it just like confuses my brain to talk about it this way. Aaron pretty much sits and says to Dave, like, hey, you didn't realize, you didn't think it was coincidental that you started being stalked when I started showing up and being your friend? Like, come on, man. Poor dumb Dave. The scene where he kills Dave is kind of hilarious because you can tell he's just like, ho-hum, doing this again. Next, we meet Sara. We see Sarah's channel, which is named Encounters. The channel is based on the premise of her answering odd Craigslist ads, where she hangs out with people, primarily men, who are unique and maybe live some interesting lifestyles. In these videos, she participates in the weirdness with the men. I'm into this idea. Not for myself, because fuck that, but I kind of like to watch. I want to see how this turns out. If someone has a channel like this, tell me about it. Unfortunately, Sarah's channel's not doing so hot, and she is at the end of her rope with this until she sees a message. You know, the message. $1,000 a day to film, and she inquires about this ad. During the course of her exchange with the person who posted this ad, she's asked if she scares easily. Of course she doesn't, or she wouldn't be doing the things that she does, but that's a huge red flag. I would be like, yes, I do. No, thank you. So she hesitates to give this person her real name, but then she throws caution to the wind and does it anyway. In the first one, old Aaron is desperate. Sara is in many ways too, but she's also used to putting herself potentially in harm's way for views. As you will see, As you will see, old Aaron and Sara are different in their presentation, their approaches, and as a result, we see some different outcomes in this. In the first Creep, I talked a lot about boundaries and about how being too agreeable was the original Aaron's downfall. Sara also doesn't have great boundaries, but it's a little different. It's kind of driven by her desire to make art. Not as much to be agreeable and people-pleasing. It's more of a throw caution to the wind and see what happens kind of recklessness. So as you guessed, she goes out to a remote location where she meets Aaron, who ends up telling her just up front that he's a serial killer. So we have a completely different story going on here. We're not seeing a replication of what happened in Creep 1. We know this is true, but Sarah's just like, yeah, right, buddy. Ha, buddy.
Hi, buddy. We're calling it Buddy.
It's a very casual conversation where Aaron is talking about how he's basically burnt out. He goes on to state that he's feeling very uninspired in his work because being a serial killer is his artwork. He says that the joy and the feelings that he experienced when he was murdering people have dampened and just aren't hidden the same way anymore. So he's having his own version of a midlife crisis. So of course, Sara agrees to follow him and assist in his desire to create a documentary about the most prolific serial killer that no one knows about. He says, I will not kill you over the next 24 hours, okay? This is a different version of Aaron/Josef that we don't see when he was just Josef. I mean, he could be making all this shit up still. We have to keep that in the back of our mind. But he seems to want to be open with Sara and is just letting it all out. So he shows her the video of old Aaron, which she still doesn't really believe is evidence that he actually kills people, which I get it. I mean, you could see that as something that was staged. Then there's an awkward scene where Aaron gets naked. Nothing sexual, kind of. He says this to alleviate the natural tension between a man and a woman because they just inherently want to see each other naked. As a woman, not so sure from a woman's perspective, but so Sarah's like, okay, plays along, gets naked too. Sure, might as well. Aaron/Josef, up to his old games, is likely trying to scare Sara off. He is trying to see how freaky can we make this? Can we scare her away? Nope, she just rolls with it. So he's up to some of his original tricks and tries to scare Sara.
Sunday morning.
Are you ready to go?
Wow, you're tough nut to crack.
But she is seemingly unbreakable. and even ends up giving Aaron a dose of his own medicine. She tapes up her own face all wacky and ends up jumping out and scaring the shit out of him. Has he met his match? So Aaron quickly learns that Sara is different and is not easily rattled. I think he even experiences some frustration with this. He's used to being able to control situations with manipulation and fear, but Sara's not afraid. In fact, she's trying to provoke him, probably for more views. We, as the viewers, know that this is a bad idea, but not Sara. They go driving out to the location, the one that Joseph Aaron led old Aaron out to look for healing waters because of his alleged brain cancer. So he just goes in the mask. He's still trying to scare her. So they go to the creek, and Aaron is pissed off because the water is very low and it's messing with his plans for the documentary. There's also a bird singing above, and he is pissed off about it. It is actually a very funny scene.
The Cold War was just heating up, but in a small town... Little bird right there. Hold on. December 1960. It's like a bad joke. Hey! One more. Try it one more time. One more time. I want you to do it. I want you to do it. Hey! No! 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 This is my movie!
Like, fuck them birds. It also shows how volatile he is. So Aaron has a big temper tantrum and takes off, and Sara finds him face down in the sand. Toddler planking. Aaron almost regresses emotionally when things are out of his control. See, we didn't see that in the first movie, because in the first movie he had some pretty good control most of the time. During the temper tantrum, Sara approaches Aaron and just holds his hand, and as like an offer of like unconditional positive regard, I suppose. I don't know what Sara was thinking. I kind of wish I did. We return to the remote location that they're staying in, and he ends up chilling in a hot tub, listening to some music. You can tell he is not emotionally in a good place when he's chilling in the hot tub. He is real unhappy. Sara, unfazed by his behavior, approaches him in the hot tub. This is reminiscent of the Peach Fuzz origin story. The real one. You know which one I'm talking about. Aaron proceeds to describe his first kill. He says that when he was a teenager, he was abducted, and the dude beat him, like, almost to the verge of death. Aaron gets the upper hand and ends up killing the dude. Tells Sara that this is when he realized what his purpose was. He talks about how he laid there next to the body, and he says he takes something from each victim. Like he absorbs part of them. Seems like he's bonding with Sara a little differently. The hot tub scene gets weirder, and she gets into the hot tub and gives him a very sensual massage, and then just gets up and walks out. Okay. As discussed in the original video, Aaron has ASPD, or antisocial personality disorder. He lacks remorse, but that doesn't mean that someone with ASPD lacks feelings. It's quite the opposite. They experience pretty intense feelings. And Aaron's got some feelings for Sara. But we all know what happens when a wolf loves something, right, Joseph Aaron?
I love wolves because they love deeply, but they don't know how to express it, and they're often very violent and, quite frankly, murder the things that they love.
I think in this film, Aaron is more relatable, even though he's like talking about killing people. I think it's just because he's so nonchalant about the whole thing, which is fascinating because in horror, murderers aren't always relatable. Aaron tells Sara the documentary will end with her killing him, and he requests that she kill him with an axe. Yes, that axe. It was really uncomfortable on this scene. Like, he's just laying on the table with a Peach Fuzz mask and is like, all right, cut my head off. And the discomfort in it is that you're kind of like, is she thinking about doing that? What's going on here? She raises the axe and hesitates in a similar way to the murder of old Aaron. And, you know, doesn't do it. He's like, oh, well, you didn't kill me. I'm gonna kill myself. Ties a noose around his neck and jumps from an upper level of the house that they're in. This is what finally rattles Sara. But he wasn't actually in danger. He was wearing a harness. He was just fucking with her. He tells her that. So at this point, she does try to leave. She's like, I'm out. This is nuts. Probably should have picked up on that sooner. But, I mean, if we think about the reason why Sara's in this, all right, she's just rolling with the weird. He talks her into staying and shares with her that he knows about her channel. There's a scene where they're sitting chilling, and Aaron admits that he's never had sex, and Sara kisses him. It's like, what are you doing, Sara? But okay. Anyway, they end up out in the woods. Aaron gives her the locket from the first story. He's like, oh yeah, there's some other guy in there. I haven't had a chance to fix it yet. And he decides that the story in the end of the documentary is going to change. It's and decides they will die together at the end of the story. It's very clear that Sarah's not on board at this point, whereas throughout the movie you're kind of like, is she into this? Sarah runs away after watching Aaron stab himself, like really stab himself, like he wasn't playing. He ends up chasing her down, stabs her, and throws her into the pre-dug hole that was supposed to hold both of their bodies for all eternity. In typical Aaron Joseph style, he gives a little monologue to the camera, but Sarah's not dead. She climbs up, knocks him out with the shovel when he isn't paying attention. Ironic.
Why didn't you at least look behind you?
After this, the movie concludes with Sara wandering around a city being unknowingly recorded, as far as we know. She's traveling through a crowded area on a train, and she's sitting there. Suddenly, she hears someone whistling the Peach Fuzz song. So she looks up, sees the person recording, camera cuts off. I thought in my original viewing that she looked scared. She seemed kind of neutral. I mean, she seemed kind of out of it, but I don't know that she looked scared. Having like second thoughts about that. Maybe a little spaced out, maybe a little dissociated. She wasn't like, oh shit, when she looked up and saw that she was being recorded. But when you experience heavy trauma like a serial killer trying to murder you, you may dissociate a little bit as a maladaptive coping strategy. Turns out that this next addition to the franchise is actually going to be a limited series named The Creep Tapes. The assumption is that the Creep Tapes are going to be individual stories of some of Joseph Aaron's previous victims. Mark Duplass, top notch at being a weird serial killer guy. What do you think about Creep and Creep 2? Which one's your favorite?